Hello, welcome. It's the last week of class, and we've got some stuff we've got to get to before you turn in your final revisions. Oh my god, I did not realize my hair looks so crazy right now. Sorry. Um, so, as you know, if you watched last week's lectures, um, what we are doing next is revisions of paper number 3, and then a literary analysis exam where we finish talking about Parable of the Sower. What we're going to be talking about in this video is quoting. So I kept you guys from quoting in these papers up until now because I wanted you to focus on summarizing ideas, paraphrasing ideas, shaping essays, because to me, quoting isn't that, quoting's not that hard, but also critical thinking is more important. Uh, quoting can be the last thing that you add to your papers. So that's kind of the way it worked this semester. So let's get right into it. Let me share screen. Okay. So quotes. Oh, let me. Okay. So why do we use quotes? We use quotes when we want to make use of the author's exact words, from single words to phrases to sentences to paragraphs. Now, not hope, you are not allowed to quote in full paragraphs for this paper. Oh, I forgot. I said this in the last lecture, but so for paper number 3, the revision, what you're going to be doing is adding quotes you're going to be revising based on my comments, correcting for grammar, correcting for missing sections, or any part of the instructions that you didn't complete or didn't complete correctly. You are going to be formatting it into MLA citation, right? So all summaries, paragraphs, and quotes will now be followed by the proper citation and proper citation format for each article that you use and every time you use it. And finally, you'll be inserting quotes into the paper. So now you have a paper that has summary and a paper that has paraphrase. Now you're going to be adding quotes. These 3 things represent not a lot of work. I'm trying to go easy on you, and I'm also trying to give you an opportunity to get a better grade than the one you got on your last papers, because your last papers were less than ideal, and I think they can be stronger, and I really want to give you guys the best grades that you can get, as well as give you an opportunity to improve a big piece of writing. So when do we use quotes? Make use of the author's exact words, from single words to phrases to sentences to paragraphs. Use them when. So here are 3 reasons you might use a quote. Language is especially vivid, right? So like when the language is like so good and you can't find better words for it, just use the author's words, right? Just quote them. Or when exact wording is needed for accuracy, or when, words of authority lend credence to an argument. Words of authority lending credence to an argument. So this is like when you're writing an opinion paper, but you want to include the words of an expert who might be able to help you prove your opinion, right? And that's when you'd be like, and according to President Barack Obama, quote, people don't like snappy slogans like defund the police. I'm just kidding. Yes, lending, or when the words, oh, this is another one. Ew. When the words themselves are the topic of analysis. So, for example, there was a lot of news this week about Barack Obama saying that people get turned off by snappy slogans like defund the police. Now, there's no other way to tell that story except then to quote him exactly and analyze what he meant, right? That is an example of one you might also quote. So watch out. It is important to know which section of your quote is useful. The most common student misstep that I see is a student quoting several sentences and filling a paragraph, where a combination of some clever paraphrasing and well placed phrases or clauses in quotes would do. What do I mean? I mean, be careful of using the entire sentence or the entire paragraph because you're not sure is which part of it is useful or most important, and also not sure how to integrate the quote without using the whole thing. Quote integration is really important part of quoting. It means, and we'll get to this in a second, but in short, quote integration is when you cut part of a quote out and fit it onto a sentence that you've already started, right? And I'll show you examples of that later. But it's when you don't want to use the whole sentence or use the whole paragraph, and you just cut out the part that you want to use without letting it lose its meaning and add it to the end of the sentence that you've already begun to supplement your idea. Example on 4, 5, oh, we'll go to that. Ellipses and brackets. So to condense a quoted passage, you can use the ellipses mark, 3 periods with spaces between, to show that you have left words out. So for example, here is a full passage. Lauren Olamina is a survivor first, scanning the horizon for dangers ahead and keeping on her group to stay organized. But she's a preacher's daughter to the last, guiding her flock through the world's dangers and feeding them words of comfort and instruction, right? Okay, so that's the passage, right? But I only want to use part of it. What am I going to do? I am going to do this. Quoted in the essay, the teacher explained, quote, Lauren Olamina is a survivor, ... but she's also a preacher's daughter to the last. So this is in a world where I've written a paper about Parable of the Sower, and I am the author, and someone is quoting me in their paper. This is the citation. We'll get into MLA citation next video. This is the citation. And this is the quote, right? So I didn't use the whole section, right? I only used what was important to me. Lauren Olamina is a survivor, ... cut out, cut out, cut out, cut out, cut out. But she's also a preacher's daughter to the last, okay? Brackets allow you to insert your own words into quoted material. Generally, we do not start quotes with ellipses. Instead, we simply put the altered letter, first letter in brackets to indicate you've changed its case so that it may start a sentence. Use brackets to 1, clarify a confusing sentence or to keep a sentence grammatically correct in your context, or 2, to indicate you are changing a letter from capital to lowercase, or vice versa to fit your sentence. So for example, Octavia Butler has been called a prophet shedding light on the darkest corners of human civilization, whose work should be mandatory reading for all sitting presidents. Okay, this is a quote that I made up as well. But it's true. And so what did I do, right? So the presence of this bracket implies that the sentence actually went on much longer probably, and I summarized the rest of the sentence in brackets that I made up for simplicity, right? Without changing the meaning of the sentence. And then also, whose work should be mandatory reading, I put in quotes, for all sitting presidents, because there's kind of no other way to say that, right? And her words are the best words in this instance. But I only wanted to use that phrase, right? So I just drop it into a sentence that I'm already paraphrasing, if that makes sense, okay? So what about when we write long quotes as signal phrases? What about when we want to write a long quote? Actually, we're going to skip long quotes. I don't want to do long quotes because you're not doing long quotes in this paper. But basically, well, I'll explain it to you, but don't Don't do it in this paper. A long quote is a quote that is more than 4 typed lines and must be set off, indenting it 1/2 inch from the left margin. These quotes must be introduced by an informative sentence, often followed by a colon. Quotation marks are unnecessary, as the format itself tells reader it is quoted material. Since you are not writing dissertations for your PhDs, a quoted passage that is over 5 to 7 lines will be seen as excessive, and in this class appears only to be taking up space. If you are doing this, you better have a good reason. That's an old policy. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay. Signal phrases are used to introduce sources, whether you are summarizing, paraphrasing, or quoting. When introducing an author or an authority for the first time, he or she needs to be given some context, who they are and what qualifies them as a source. Then the signal phrase comes in. Okay, so here we go. For this quote, I give the name of the author, Justin Torres. I explain why he's relevant. Justin Torres, author of We the Animals, explained in his commencement speech that, quote, queer teens are underrepresented in stories about poverty or mixed race identity politics, and that he hopes this intersection will continue to, quote, bear fruit, quote, to give poor queer teens of color, quote, a voice and a life vest when they find themselves sinking. So look what I've done. I did not include his whole speech. I didn't even include the whole paragraph. Didn't even include any of his complete sentences. I paraphrased his words and dropped in the key clauses and phrases, right? But to do that, I had to first introduce him by name, introduce him by qualifications, then give the signal phrase. The signal phrase being explained in his commencement speech, right? I'm saying something like he explained, he said, he qualified, he illustrated, right? There's so many ways, and it's up to you to figure out which one works best. As you work through your own essays, it's important that your work is not dominated by quotes, summaries, or paraphrases, but that these should only be used to supplement your own opinions. A paper clogged with quotes buries your ideas. An essay that never quotes is begging for backup. An essay that does not summarize lacks context, and an essay that does not paraphrase shows a lack of comprehension. An essay that favors any of these formats over the others is poorly argued. So now I want to show you an example. So in another class, I wrote an essay about the presidential candidates. This was last semester, in which they debated a non-existent idea. And I think I actually read you guys part of this earlier in the semester. But here is where how it looks when they quote. So, entrepreneur Andrew Yang, Senator Amy Klobuchar, and U.S. Representative Tulsi Gabbard each represented their wild dog agendas. So they're debating what to do about the wild dogs in Parable of the Sower. So it's as if Andrew Yang, Amy Klobuchar, and Tulsi Gabbard were also running for president at the beginning of Parable of the Sower. So, when asked what he would do to curb infant theft by wild dogs, Andrew Yang responded that they should be rounded up and reconditioned to human contact. Okay, so notice Yang responded. So I've already introduced who Andrew Yang is at the beginning of the paragraph. Andrew Yang, who is an entrepreneur. And now that I've done that, I can just refer to him by his last name. And I give my signal phrase. Responded, and here now is where I paraphrase, that they should be rounded up and I use a word that is so specific as to be irreplaceable, and be rounded up and reconditioned to human contact. Now I give my quote. They used to be so cute, he insisted. And if I am president, I am going to make dogs cute again. So note for later, this is what MLA citation looks like. We'll talk about that in another video. Klobuchar took the opportunity to challenge Yang, citing that 70% of wild dogs that had been adopted off the street went on to eat a child. Klobuchar believes food and clothing for the homeless can be supplied by the hunting of these wild dogs, and that this will also make streets safer. So notice for this one, I imagine that she like rambled for 5 minutes about her hunting dog policy and about how dogs that are adopted eat children, right? She rants and rants and rants on the debate stage. I need to sum it up, right? Is there anything that's really usable from her quotes? I decided no. So I'm just summarizing here. See? The question was then directed to Gabbard, who has made wild dogs her central campaign issue. When she answered the question with her now famous campaign slogan, the audience joined her in a chant, "Send the dogs to space." Gabbard wishes to jettison all of the dogs into the cosmos with a rocket, like the dog astronauts of Soviet Russia. When asked if there were any scientific benefits to such an experiment, she replied, "I hope not." Sorry. Gabbard believes dogs are such a nuisance, they should be completely removed and forgotten. Okay, so I do a lot of things in this. Maybe I'm trying too hard here, but so here is an example of when the exact words are the subject of the of analysis, right? Her campaign, this issue is so central to her that "send the dogs to space" has become her campaign chant, right? So it's the words themselves that are important here, and so they need to be quoted. Now I'm summarizing. Gabbard wishes to jettison all of the dogs into the cosmos with a rocket, and now I quote her again, like the astronaut dogs of Soviet Russia. When asked if there were any blah, 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 she replied, "I hope not." And the reason I quote her there, like, it's just so cavalier and amazing. Okay. While we do not know which of these solutions will be enacted, at least one of these would address the wild dog problem in Parable of the Sower. Okay, so that is quoting, and that is how I'd like you to use quotes, and all the instances in which you can use them. Okay, so for this week, I'm going to be posting like a 20-minute lecture every day between now and Friday. Today, quoting. Tomorrow, MLA format. Thursday, it may not. It'll either be MLA format or chapters 19 to 20. 19 to 22 of Parable of the Sower, and then MLA citation, and then chapters 23 to 25 of Parable of the Sower, and then a review. And then that's it. I still have not heard from some people about one-on-one meetings. So get back to me. Let's get those done. Let's get you guys the best grades you can get. I want to give you all A's, honestly. So give me a reason to. Okay. I'll talk to you guys next time. And don't hesitate to email me with any questions. All right. Thank you. Bye.